Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoyevsky was born on November 11th, 1821, October 30th, under the Julian calendar in Moscow, inside the Mariinsky Hospital, where his father, Mikhail Andreevich, worked as a military doctor. From his very first breath, the life of young Fyodor was surrounded by the raw spectacle of human suffering. His childhood unfolded among the groans of the sick, the dark hospital corridors, and the devout stories told by his mother, Maria Nekayeva, a deeply religious and emotionally sensitive woman. The collision between a grim clinical environment and Orthodox Christian faith engraved a permanent duality in Dostoevsky's soul: compassion for the wounded spirit and an obsession with pain as a possible path to redemption. His father was a severe, disciplined, and authoritarian man. Their relationship was tense, marked by psychological violence and relentless pressure to excel. The atmosphere at home was oppressive, often terrifying. Dostoyevsky lived torn between love for his mother and fear of his father. Yet even in that household, there was an unexpected refuge: books. Fyodor devoured everything he could find: the Bible, Russian folk tales, Goethe, Cervantes, Schiller, Shakespeare. In literature, he escaped into worlds where the human soul expanded in all its contradictions. His imagination sharpened early, as did his almost mystical intensity when observing others. From childhood, he was hypersensitive, introspective, emotionally fragile, and prone to nervous episodes. He was not a cheerful or robust boy, but a precocious thinker who preferred silence and contemplation. He was educated at home until the age of 9, then sent with his older brother Mikhail to a private boarding school. There, his life shifted dramatically. Separated from his mother, he fell into a melancholy that would never fully leave him. Though he excelled in literature and the humanities, tragedy soon struck. In 1837, at just 15, his mother died of tuberculosis. This loss shattered him and accelerated his transfer to the Military Engineering Academy in St. Petersburg, a rigid institution completely alien to his vocation, imposed by his father to guarantee a practical future. Then came the second catastrophe. In 1839, his father was murdered under murky circumstances, likely by his own serfs, exhausted by years of abuse, though it was never officially proven. Fyodor was 18. The shock was devastating. Shortly afterward, he suffered his first epileptic seizure. From that moment on, the specters of death, guilt, divine punishment, and moral reckoning began to haunt him, forces that would later define his entire literary universe. Pain, he would come to believe, was not an obstacle to the soul. It was its nourishment. In 1838, Dostoevsky and his brother entered the St. Petersburg Military Engineering Institute, an elite and rigid academy where obedience, geometry, and artillery defined destiny. For Dostoevsky, it was nothing but an elegant prison. His spirit did not resonate with formulas or structures. His true passion remained literature, psychology, and the mystery of the human soul. Among future officers, he felt like an imposter, a poet disguised as a soldier. He grew increasingly isolated, yet St. Petersburg itself became a window into intellectual life. He read European authors obsessively: Balzac, Victor Hugo. He wrote at night with trembling fingers, copying classic texts to understand their inner mechanics. He translated Schiller and drafted his first stories in secret, driven by insecurity, ambition, and a silent inner fire. In 1843, he graduated as a sub-lieutenant engineer, but refused a full military career. Instead, he requested administrative duties to allow time for writing. In 1844, at just 23, he resigned entirely. He leapt into literature. Living in poverty, he wrote his first novel, Poor Folk, completed in 1845. His friend Dmitry Grigorovich showed the manuscript to the influential critic Vissarion Belinsky. The reaction was immediate. Belinsky declared it the first truly human social novel in Russian literature. Published in 1846, it catapulted Dostoyevsky to sudden fame. Overnight, the insecure young recluse became a rising star in St. Petersburg's literary salons. But success did not bring peace. It brought illusion and the quiet approach of disaster. If you are enjoying this story so far, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us continue creating in-depth stories like this one. Now let us continue. After Poor Folk, Dostoyevsky was embraced by Russia's literary elite, only to be harshly judged when his second novel, The Double, failed to meet expectations. Critics called it confusing, dense, and psychologically unsettling. Many suspected his first success had been accidental. He continued writing amid poverty, insomnia, and existential doubt. St. Petersburg became not just a setting, but a devouring urban monster, imperial splendor beside brutal misery. In this environment, Dostoyevsky gravitated toward radical political thought. In 1847, he joined the Petrashevsky Circle, a group of progressive intellectuals discussing socialist and utopian ideas banned by the Tsarist regime. In 1849, they were betrayed, arrested, and condemned. Dostoyevsky was imprisoned in the Peter and Paul fortress. After weeks of isolation and interrogation, he was sentenced to death. On December 22, 1849, he was led to the execution yard. Blindfolded, hearing the commands, believing his final seconds had arrived. Time fractured. He later said that every instant became eternal. Then, at the last possible moment, a messenger arrived. The sentence was commuted. Forced labor in Siberia. That symbolic death split his life in two. Siberia was not imprisonment. It was annihilation. From 1850 to 1854, Dostoyevsky lived among criminals in freezing barracks. He slept on lice-infested planks, wore shackles, ate stale bread and watery soup. The cold pierced bone. The stench of bodies was constant. What destroyed him most was not physical punishment, but humiliation. Identity erased. A noble reduced to a number. Yet there, among murderers and broken souls, he discovered something profound: shared humanity. He learned to see criminals not as monsters, but as lost men. His understanding of sin, forgiveness, and redemption was forged there. Forbidden to write fiction, he memorized the Bible, the only book allowed. Not as dogma, but as survival. "The prison saved me," he later said. "I was buried alive and resurrected." After years of exile and forced military service, Dostoyevsky slowly returned to writing. His life became a cycle of love, loss, gambling, debt, illness, and creation. Then, in 1866, he published Crime and Punishment, a masterpiece. Raskolnikov c. Torment was Dostoevsky c. Cern. The novel was a resounding success and marked the beginning of a new stage in his career. He followed with The Idiot, Demons, and A Writer's Diary. His voice hardened into prophecy. In 1878 tragedy struck again. His young son, Alyosha, died suddenly. From this grief emerged the Brothers Karamazov. Faith, reason, passion. God, evil, freedom, redemption. It was his final testament. While finishing the novel, his health collapsed. Tuberculosis advanced. Epileptic seizures multiplied. He knew time was running out. In early 1881, he suffered a fatal pulmonary hemorrhage. Before dying, he asked to hear the parable of the prodigal son. He listened with tears and whispered that it was the story of his life. On February 9th, 1881, Fyodor Dostoyevsky died in St. Petersburg, surrounded by his wife Anna and his children. More than 30,000 people attended his funeral. On his grave were engraved the words he himself had chosen. "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." If you have made it this far and still have not subscribed, now is the moment. Activate notifications, leave a comment, tell us what you think of Dostoyevsky or who you would like to see in the next video. Your voice helps this channel grow. Dostoyevsky did not write for his century. He wrote for the wounded soul. Reading him is not comfort. It is confrontation. And once you listen to him with an open heart, you are never the same.